Michael Jordan famously selected Kwame Brown with the first pick of the 2001 NBA Draft. After averaging under 7 points and 6 rebounds for his career, Kwame is widely considered as one of the biggest busts in NBA history. In this video, we'll talk about Kwame's rough road to the NBA, his complicated relationship with Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, and where he ranks among other first picks that didn't pan out. Kwame Brown was recently called out and mocked on All the Smoke podcast, but was he really an all-time bust? Navigating through criminal surroundings. Kwame Brown grew up in a messed-up family in a rough neighborhood in Charleston, South Carolina. His childhood was anything but easy, often looking like a scene from The Wire, CSI, or Narcos. Kwame's father, Willie Brown, was an abusive alcoholic and narcotics user, and he often beat Kwame's mother and his 7 kids. When Kwame was a teenager, his dad killed his new girlfriend with the handle of an axe, and Willie ended up serving a life sentence. Kwame's mom moved the family to Brunswick in Georgia, but he still lived surrounded by drugs and violence. Kwame's brothers were pushing dope, and one of them ended up in jail for dealing, the other for armed robbery. The only bright spot in the Brown family was Kwame, who grew up to 6'11" and was blessed with innate athleticism and agility. Despite being in and out of homeless shelters, constantly moving, and police knocking on his door more than the mailman, Kwame focused on basketball and keeping good grades in school. As a senior, Brown averaged 20 points, 13 rebounds, 2 steals, and a staggering 6 blocks per game. He was named a McDonald's All-American and the best high school player in the country. Kwame signed a letter of intent to play for the University of Florida under coach Billy Donovan, who believed that Kwame is extremely talented, but also quite raw, and both physically and mentally not ready for the NBA at that point. However, when the new Washington Wizards team president personally came to visit him and said that he would use their lottery pick to select him, Brown couldn't say no. He couldn't say no because the Wizards team president was Michael Jordan. When his airness personally comes to your home and says that he wants to change your life with millions of dollars and take you to the promised land, you have to say yes, especially after all the stuff Kwame endured. Jordan saw Brown as a franchise cornerstone, and when he witnessed Kwame destroying Tyson Chandler, another high school sensation at the time, in the last pre-draft workout, his mind was set. In his first move as an executive, MJ drafted Kwame Brown first overall in the 2001 NBA Draft, making him the first high school player ever to become the #1 pick. Then, in his second big move, he unretired Michael Jordan, the player, thus becoming the first and only player executive in NBA history. Terrible rookie season and the roller coaster of emotions. Kwame was supposed to follow the path of Kevin Garnett, Kobe, Tracy McGrady, and Jermaine O'Neal, who all became all-stars after coming to the NBA straight out of high school. However, none of those players played at an all-star level in their rookie season, and the Wizards knew that he would need some time to develop. But the problem was that the Wizards had Michael Jordan on their team, and Michael Jordan isn't the most patient guy in the world, and he does not tolerate losing very well. MJ was known for bullying teammates, making their life tough so they wouldn't break under pressure when the big moment came. He fouled his teammates hard in practice. He trash-talked and mocked them constantly, and in the case of Steve Kerr, even punched him in the face. But when Kwame Brown became his glorified first pick and his teammate, Jordan tried to break his old habits and made Kwame his protege. He acted like a big brother, brought him to his house, showed him what's possible if he develops into a star. Unfortunately for Kwame, it's tough to teach old dogs new tricks. Jordan's ferocious mentality showed when the training camp started and when Kwame challenged him to a one-on-one. Brown scored first and dared to talk some smack in Jordan's general direction, which did not end up well. Jordan started abusing him verbally and destroying him on the court. From that point on, the big brother act slowly faded away, and the insults and trash talk started to prevail, especially because it was becoming evident that Kwame wasn't ready to be a contributor at an NBA level. Before the season started, Wizards brass told Brown that he needed to bulk up to match up with the heavy centers that dominated the NBA, like Shaq, Mutombo, and Alonzo Mourning. Added weight and off-season injury stripped away Kwame's biggest quality, his speed and agility. To make things worse, that also meant he wasn't in the best shape and couldn't move very well, which made Jordan livid, and Kwame's life soon became unbearable. Brown was on a veteran team with no real friends. He often quarreled with MJ and head coach Doug Collins, who both thought Brown didn't work hard enough and didn't have the capacity to accept criticism and simply shut up and play harder. Jordan often teased Kwame that his hands are too small, and that he can't catch the ball in the post, and that he's too weak to battle inside, which was harsh, but it wasn't far from the truth. In his rookie season, Kwame only played 14 minutes per game, good enough for 4.5 points and 3.5 2.5 rebounds per game, with an abysmal 38% shooting from the field. He improved to 7.4 points on 46% shooting as a sophomore, with 5.3 rebounds in 22 minutes per game. However, everything was still centered around Jordan, and Kwame didn't get much opportunity to develop his offensive skills and make many mistakes on the court. When Jordan retired for good in 2003, Kwame was finally free of his harassment, which resulted in the best season of his career. He played more than 30 minutes per game for the first and only time in his career, averaging 11 points with 7.5 rebounds. Those weren't exactly all-star numbers, but Kwame proved that he belongs in the NBA, especially on the defensive end, where he became a solid interior defender due to his size and quick feet. In his fourth season, Brown was limited to 42 games due to injuries. His highest-scoring game of the season was 19 points, compared to his season high of 30 the year before, and he averaged just 7 points per game. In the offseason, the Wizards traded Brown to the Lakers, pairing him with another legendary and relentless shooting guard who doesn't tolerate crap from anybody. Don't throw me the ball, Kobe. By the time he arrived in LA, Kwame Brown had a defined role in the NBA. He was a solid rebounder and an above-average defender, and coaches didn't demand much else from him. It's tough to break out of a mold and showcase new skills in the NBA if you already fit one box, because every coach will demand you to do the same stuff and put you in the same box. If you suddenly start shooting and dribbling excessively, you'll often be relegated to the bench because the coach didn't ask you to do that. Kwame didn't love basketball at that time, and he treated it like a job that paid well. He had a calm demeanor and wasn't very confrontational, so he kept rebounding and playing defense when the coaches asked him to. He averaged around 8 points and 6 rebounds in 27 minutes on the court, with an improved efficiency around the rim, shooting nearly 60% in 2007. Kwame also showed up in the playoffs, improving his season averages and playing great defense. However, injuries limited him in his third season with the Lakers in 2008, and he played the season on a sprained ankle and a busted shoulder. During a game against a tough Detroit team that ruled the East in that era, Kobe kept the Lakers afloat by scoring 40. The Pistons started to play a box-and-one defense down the stretch of the game, and Bryant was forced to pass the ball, so he passed it to Kwame, who bobbled it, and it went out of bounds. "You're going to be open again, Kwame, because Rashid is totally ignoring you," Kobe said during a timeout. "Well, if I'm open, don't throw it to me. I'm nervous. If I catch it and they foul me, I won't make the free throws anyway," Kwame responded. Because he was a 50% foul shooter and had a bad shoulder, Kwame was probably right not to demand the ball. However, that kind of cowardly behavior in the crucial moments didn't sit well with Kobe, who was out of his mind when he heard that, especially because he always wanted the ball down the stretch, even if both of his shoulders were damaged. That game against Detroit was the last game Kwame Brown played for the Lakers. He was sent to Memphis as part of the deal for Pau Gasol, who probably should have been the first pick of the 2001 draft instead of Kwame. Pau went on to play 3 consecutive NBA Finals with the Lakers, while Kwame moved around the league as a role player. After the trade, Stephen A. Smith famously called Brown a scrub on ESPN, saying that he can't play basketball. Kwame played for 5 more seasons and 4 different teams, where he showed that he could be a useful rotation player when healthy, but not more than that. Unfortunately, his health also deteriorated, and he was constantly battling minor injuries. By the age of 31, Kwame Brown's NBA career was over. Legacy. If Kwame Brown was the 10th draft pick and got into a team without Michael Jordan and was allowed to make mistakes on the court and play 35 minutes a night, I'm positive he would have had a better career. The Jordan experience proved bad for Brown's confidence, for his opportunities on the court, and for the way he was portrayed in the media, which definitely plays a big part in how an athlete is perceived. After the Wizards years, Kwame was portrayed as a bad player with a poor work ethic, with the label of a bust. Yes, he wasn't talented enough to be selected first overall and should have been drafted in the middle or late in the first round. Yes, he had small hands and wasn't good at catching the ball in the post, but Kwame Brown didn't ask Jordan to select him. Jordan did that on his own. And regarding his work ethic and maturity, sure, he wasn't on MJ's or Kobe's level, but most 19-year-olds aren't. If he got into a better situation where he wasn't berated and trash-talked all the time by his own teammate and the guy who drafted him, I'm pretty sure his game and confidence would have developed differently in a positive way. Kwame was one of the biggest biggest reasons why the NBA instituted a rule that prohibited players from coming to the league straight out of high school in 2006. Kwame could have definitely benefited from 1 or 2 years of college, both physically and mentally. The way it turned out, he will always be considered a bust because he was drafted so high and didn't produce at an all-star level. But as we stated before, he didn't draft himself with the first pick. As far as draft busts go, Kwame wasn't the worst #1 pick either, and was definitely better than Anthony Bennett, LaRue Martin, or Michael Oluwakandi. And to put things into perspective, Kwame still had a solid 12-year NBA career, during which he earned $64 million. That's pretty good for a guy who grew up next to guns and narcotics, and had police smash his house door every other week. People were recently mocking him on various shows on YouTube, and in my opinion, Kwame didn't deserve the hate, and I was glad that he fired back. Sure, Kwame Brown wasn't the greatest NBA player, but he had a successful career in my eyes.